A palace audit has reportedly uncovered shocking damage to one of Queen Elizabeth II's most treasured sapphire collections, and the fallout is said to be massive. The King George VI Victorian Sapphire Suite, one of the most sentimental jewellery sets linked to the late Queen, has now become the centre of a royal storm. More than jewels, these pieces carry memory, status, and history. And inside Buckingham Palace, that history is now said to have been disturbed in a way that has left senior officials stunned. The crown is never just gold and gemstones. It stands for duty, continuity, and trust. That is why this discovery hits so hard. Royal appraisers and auditors, joined by heritage specialists, entered the secured palace vaults for what should have been a routine quarterly inspection of legacy assets. It was meant to be a normal review of the diamonds, rubies, sapphires, and other objects held by the monarch in trust for the nation. Instead, the mood reportedly changed the second they reached the section reserved for Queen Elizabeth II's most personal effects. At the centre of the concern was the King George VI Victorian Sapphire Suite, also known as the George VI Sapphire Suite. According to the account, it was no longer in the condition it should have been. And that mattered because this set is not just valuable, it is deeply symbolic. The sapphires and diamonds are said to date back to around 1850 and were given to Princess Elizabeth in 1947 as a wedding gift from King George VI. For decades, the late Queen wore them during some of the most important moments of her reign, turning them into a visual part of royal history itself. The suite originally included a long Victorian necklace with oblong sapphires and a matching pair of square sapphire earrings. Later, in 1963, the Queen added a tiara and bracelet to complete the set. Experts have valued the collection in the millions, but its real worth has always gone far beyond money. These pieces represented family memory, monarchy, and legacy all at once. Following Queen Elizabeth II's death in 2022, the collection was reportedly passed on under a strict rule of custodianship, not personal ownership. That meant the jewels could be worn for major state occasions, but not altered, damaged, or changed. According to this version of events, Queen Camilla was allowed to wear them in tribute to the late Queen, but she was never meant to treat them like private accessories. That is what made the audit findings so explosive. The square sapphire earrings, described as some of the late Queen's most cherished sentimental pieces, were reportedly found in an altered condition. A forensic review allegedly concluded that the original settings had been forced and modified. In the most dramatic part of the claim, the heirloom earrings had been converted into clip-ons. The reason given was simple but deeply controversial. Because Camilla does not have pierced ears, the change was allegedly made for personal comfort. But to heritage experts, that was no small adjustment. It meant a historic royal artifact had been reshaped to fit convenience. The report is said to have described the damage as serious, with the structural integrity of the original Victorian work compromised and restoration likely difficult. For traditionalists, this was not styling, it was desecration, and the crisis did not end there. As the inspection continued, the situation reportedly grew even worse. Several other major items linked to Queen Elizabeth II were said to be missing from their secured containers. Among them were the sapphire Jubilee brooch, the double-strand pearl necklace associated with one of the most solemn moments of royal history, and the lockdown journals, said to be among the most sensitive private materials in the palace. These journals were described as two handwritten leather-bound volumes containing the late Queen's private reflections, fears, and personal letters to her heirs during the global pandemic. According to the story, they were meant to remain sealed until the year 2122. That detail turned concern into alarm. Missing jewels were one thing. Missing private royal writings was something else entirely. There were reportedly no signs of an outside break-in, no damaged locks, no forced entry, no triggered alarms. That pushed investigators to look inward. Security records allegedly showed that the vault had been opened late at night by a palace guard acting on direct instructions received through an internal palace phone line. When officials traced the origin of that signal, it reportedly led straight to Queen Camilla's private residential wing. Then came the discovery that sent shockwaves through the palace. A staff member cleaning the Queen Consort's private bedroom allegedly found the sapphire Jubilee brooch hidden inside a false-bottom compartment in a jewelry box. At that point, the matter was no longer treated like confusion or accidental movement. It was being viewed as a deliberate removal of protected royal property. The palace was said to have gone into instant crisis mode. King Charles III, who was hosting a high-level diplomatic delegation from Nigeria at the time, reportedly kept his composure in public while the internal situation worsened behind closed doors. He carried on with duty, kept up the image of control, and said nothing while evidence reportedly mounted against his own wife. But insiders say that once the meeting ended, the tone changed completely. The polished image of a careful queen consort was suddenly replaced by something far more damaging. In this version of events, she was no longer being seen as a guardian of royal tradition, but as someone who had treated the crown's treasures like objects she could move, reshape, and hide. The sapphire suite laid out on the velvet tray was no longer the untouched masterpiece Queen Elizabeth II had worn for decades. It had become the centerpiece of a palace scandal. Beside the necklace lay the altered sapphire earrings. Under close inspection, the fine 19th century metalwork reportedly appeared bent, filed, and solid. The original fittings had allegedly been removed and replaced with modern clip-on hinges. One expert was said to have compared the act to spray painting over a Da Vinci. To King Charles, the damage was reportedly not only historic, but deeply personal. This had been his father's wedding gift to his mother. Soon after, the heavy doors of the palace war room reportedly closed for an emergency confrontation. Present, according to accounts, were King Charles III, Prince William, Princess Anne, Prince Edward, and Queen Camilla. The king, still said to be furious after maintaining a calm face through the Nigerian diplomatic event, reportedly asked in a low voice, "How did a piece of the nation's history end up under a false floor in your bedroom, and why was it altered?" He did not need to point to the tray. Everyone in the room knew exactly what he meant. Camilla reportedly did not begin with an apology. Her first response, according to those familiar with the exchange, was based on status and discretion. She argued that as queen consort, the use and maintenance of the jewelry fell within her authority. She allegedly described the change as a minor adjustment that allowed the heritage pieces to be worn instead of hidden away in storage. But Charles was said to be ready for that defense. He reminded her that such items are not personal property. They are crown assets held in trust, protected by rules, process, and formal approval. Any change to a major historical object, he reportedly said, would require a proposal, expert assessment, and the monarch's direct signature. Camilla had bypassed all of it. Then Prince William spoke, and the focus shifted from the earrings to the missing journals. His voice was reportedly sharp as he looked at the empty space where they should have been. "The jewelry is a tragedy," he began, "but the journals are a betrayal. That line is said to have cut through the room." He reportedly pressed harder, asking why sealed, private writings from his grandmother had been moved, and why a guard had been influenced in the middle of the night to bypass security. Internal phone records allegedly showed a 4 a.m. call from Camilla's private wing to a guard whose family was under severe medical debt. The caller, using the authority of the Queen Consort's office, had allegedly offered financial help in exchange for discreetly moving certain archives for preservation. At that point, Camilla's composure reportedly began to crack. She is said to have admitted taking the journals, but insisted she had done it out of protection rather than greed. "I did it for you, Charles," she reportedly claimed. Her argument then took an even darker turn. She said that during the 2020 to 2021 lockdown, Queen Elizabeth II, isolated and grieving after Prince Philip's death, had written troubling reflections about the monarchy's future and harsh thoughts about the family's internal fractures. And according to Camilla's version, those pages contained dangerous doubts that could shake everything if they were ever seen. Most damaging of all were the private letters that allegedly raised doubts about Charles's readiness for the throne. Camilla's defense was that if the journals were ever opened in 2022 or leaked before then, they would tear the House of Windsor apart. She reportedly claimed she wanted to curate the legacy, removing pages she believed could trigger a constitutional crisis and protect her husband's reign from the shadow of his mother's private fears. The room fell into a brutal silence. In that moment, the question was no longer simple. Was she acting like a loyal wife? Or had she crossed the line into becoming the keeper of history, trying to reshape the truth to protect her own place in it? Princess Anne, known for being direct and ruthless about protocol, was the one who finally broke the silence. She reportedly said, "You do not protect the crown by breaking its laws. You protect the crown by obeying the sovereign's will." Then came the line that cut the deepest. The Queen's will was for those journals to remain untouched. By touching them, you have not protected the king. You have compromised the integrity of the throne. That was the moment the confrontation changed for good. The search for missing objects had turned into a judgment of character. Charles had now seen the damaged sapphires, physical proof that royal heritage had allegedly been treated with shocking disrespect. He had also heard the confession about the journals, which to him reportedly showed the same disregard for law and duty. The betrayal was now fully exposed. This was no longer about misplaced jewels. It was about control, secrecy, and a battle over who had the right to shape the memory of the late Queen. Charles's response, according to this version of events, was not emotional. It was institutional. He immediately ordered a full forensic review of every heritage item Camilla had handled. He revoked her access to the royal vaults on the spot, and most importantly, he began drafting what insiders later called the Sanctions of May, a ruling designed to strip her of her public role and remove her from the monarchy's active structure. The world thought it knew the story of Charles and Camilla, but this was the chapter nobody expected. The silence after the war room clash was not calm. It was the suffocating stillness that comes right before something breaks. King Charles III, the man who had waited a lifetime to wear the crown, stood facing the woman he had defended for decades. But on that afternoon in May 2025, the husband was gone. Only the monarch remained. He did not reach for anger. He reached for the law. Holding a formal red folder containing the Royal Heritage Conservation Act and related sovereign statutes, Charles reportedly delivered a ruling so swift and so cold that it effectively erased Camilla from the functional hierarchy of the state. "The crown survives through service and trust," he is said to have declared. "When that trust is broken within these walls, when the history of this nation is damaged for personal convenience, the strength of the monarchy is placed at risk. No individual, regardless of title, stands above the preservation of our heritage." Then the sanctions were read aloud, one after another, like a modern internal abdication. First came the stripping of military and ceremonial roles. Camilla was reportedly removed from her honorary military appointments, including her role as Colonel of the Grenadier Guards. These were not just fancy labels. They were symbols linking her to the armed forces and the state. By cutting them off, Charles was sending a clear signal that she was no longer fit to represent royal duty in public. Second came the suspension of public duties. Every engagement on Camilla's calendar was reportedly wiped from the royal circular. Her name, once routine in the official record of royal work, was suddenly gone. Charities and patronages connected to her received formal notices that their royal associations were under immediate review. In one move, the public face of the Queen Consort began to disappear. Third came the seizure of the heritage assets. Charles reportedly ordered the immediate repossession of every royal item Camilla had access to through the royal collection. The damaged King George VI Victorian sapphire suite was returned to the custody of the Crown Jewellers. A new decree allegedly followed. From that point forward, Camilla would be banned from borrowing, wearing, or even accessing any item from Queen Elizabeth II's personal or state collection. The sapphire scandal had made sure she would never again drape herself in the royal history she was accused of failing to respect. Fourth came the harshest move of all, the decree of exile. Camilla was reportedly ordered to leave Buckingham Palace by dawn and relocate to Ray Mill House in Wiltshire. Palace figures allegedly described her status with one chilling word: indefinite. This was not framed as a break or a private retreat. It was treated as a removal from the centre of royal life with no clear path back. And hanging over the whole room were the lockdown journals. Charles confirmed, according to accounts of the meeting, that the journals had been recovered from Camilla's hidden compartment. To protect them, he reportedly imposed a dual-key digital protocol on the vault holding the late Queen's private writings. Only 2 people were said to hold access now: King Charles III and Prince William. That choice carried huge symbolic weight. Charles was not just shutting out his wife, he was publicly showing that he trusted his heir with the future of the monarchy more than the woman beside him. The journals were then reportedly resealed to remain protected until 2122, exactly as Queen Elizabeth II had intended. In that moment, Charles had made his choice. He had chosen the law over comfort, duty over marriage, and the integrity of the crown over the image of a modern queen. As Camilla was escorted out, the reality reportedly hit with full force. She had entered the palace after years of struggle, but now she was leaving through the shadow of a sapphire blue scandal. And still, the king had one more role to play. In royal life, there is the old idea of the great mask, the ability of the sovereign to project total stability while everything behind the curtain is falling apart. On the morning of Wednesday, May 14, 2025, Charles reportedly gave a brutal masterclass in that art. While the sanctions were being finalised and Camilla was being quietly moved to Wiltshire, the king stood in the grand reception room, greeting a high-level delegation from Nigeria for a major Commonwealth meeting involving trade and security. For 4 long hours, he shook hands, discussed policy, and spoke of partnership without letting a single flicker of the crisis show on his face. Not one expression betrayed the fact that only hours earlier he had allegedly discovered a historic royal sapphire suite damaged inside his wife's private quarters. That restraint was not just personal discipline, it was strategy. Charles reportedly knew that if the scandal exploded while the delegation was still present, a domestic royal crisis would instantly become an international humiliation. Behind the scenes, though, the machinery was already moving. Shortly after the Nigerian delegation left, the first major sign of the shift appeared. The court circular, usually a dull diary of meetings and ribbon cuttings, was updated. But this time, one thunderous omission stood out. Queen Camilla's name was gone. Her upcoming engagements for months ahead were marked cancelled or reassigned. Her patronages received urgent confidential notices saying their royal links were under indefinite suspension because of internal administrative restructuring. Public curiosity quickly turned into frenzy. On social media, people began asking, "Where is Camilla?" By evening, royal watchers had noticed even more signs that something huge had happened. Then came the palace statement. It was brief, clinical, and carefully worded, but it confirmed that a major heritage asset had suffered unauthorized structural modification and had been returned to the crown jewelers for urgent restoration. Camilla was not named, but everyone paying attention understood what it meant. It was public humiliation by palace code. There were no loud announcements, no emotional press conference, no dramatic breakdown on the palace steps. Instead, what the world witnessed was something colder, cleaner, and far more ruthless, a surgical removal. The refined image Camilla had built for years was being stripped away piece by piece. By sunset, the gates of Ray Mill House were shut tight, security tightened around the property, and the once central royal figure had been pushed out of sight. Charles had protected the monarchy through the diplomatic storm, but when he finally withdrew to his private chapel that night, the truth could no longer be hidden. The crown may have survived, but the marriage was in ruins. And while the public argued over the political fallout of Camilla's sudden disappearance from royal life, the real technical heart of the crisis was unfolding somewhere far quieter and far more chilling. In a secure laboratory used by the crown jewelers, some of the finest gem experts and metallurgical historians in the world were said to be bent over microscopes, studying the wreckage of the King George VI Victorian sapphire suite. Their assignment was grim, precise, and historic. They were there to measure the full extent of the damage as the Goldsmith's report leaked to investigative sources within the palace. What this Goldsmith's report reveals is nothing less than professional heartbreak. According to palace sources, it describes a devastating loss of historical integrity surrounding the 1850 sapphire earrings. These pieces were not simply adjusted or lightly changed, they were structurally altered in a way that, to heritage experts, crossed a serious line and changed the story of the jewels forever. To understand why this caused such outrage, you have to understand how delicate top-level Victorian jewellery really is. Pieces of this quality were made with a very specific alloy, fine hand-finished metalwork, and an old pin-and-screw tension system that modern tools cannot easily copy without leaving damage behind. Once antique settings like these are handled with modern force, the original craftsmanship can be scarred for good. That is why the reported order to turn them into clip-ons was seen as such a reckless move. The report states that the original 19th century posts were cut away using high-heat industrial tools, causing microscopic thermal fractures around the surrounding diamond pave. It also says the modern clip mechanisms were attached with a lower-grade gold alloy, contaminating the original Victorian gold. The verdict was blunt. The sapphires may still be intact, but the George VI Victorian suite, as an untouched 1850 historical artifact, no longer exists in the same form. In the world of elite heritage preservation, being labelled a modified piece is not a minor note. It is a stain that follows the object forever. For King Charles III, that verdict reportedly changed everything. This was no longer only about a hidden compartment, a midnight phone call, or missing royal items. It had become about the physical damage of one of his mother's most treasured wedding gifts, a gift from a father to a daughter that had survived decades of royal history, only to be altered for personal comfort. In this version of events, that was the final blow to Camilla's royal standing. In response, Charles did not simply punish his wife. He reportedly moved to rewrite the rules of royal heritage itself. On a Friday evening in 2025, the palace was said to have introduced the Sovereign Heritage Protection Act of 2025, a strict new regulation applying to every member of the royal family, from the king down to the most junior royal trusted with legacy items. The first rule was mandatory quarterly audits. Every 3 months, independent heritage experts, not palace staff but outside professionals, would conduct a physical inspection of every item in the royal collection currently on loan to a family member. The second rule was the anti-modification clause. No jewellery, furniture or historical object classified as a legacy asset could be cleaned, repaired, resized or altered by anyone except the officially appointed crown jewellers. Any royal who approved an outside adjustment would face immediate seizure of the item and suspension of related royal funding. Then came what insiders called the Camilla precedent on ownership. The new rule reportedly made it clear that no spouse of a monarch, consort or otherwise, has any legal or informal claim to Queen Elizabeth II's personal effects. Those objects are not private keepsakes. They are state-held memory, preserved in trust for the British people. That was seen as a direct rejection of the idea that the sapphire pieces had somehow been promised to Camilla. To enforce the law, Charles reportedly appointed a new board of heritage custodians made up of master jewelers and preservation experts whose loyalty would be to the objects, not to the personalities wearing them. But the most explosive detail was the blacklist. In a move that stunned aristocratic circles, Camilla was reportedly permanently barred from ever receiving a heritage asset again. She lost the right to wear the George VI suite, the sapphire jubilee brooch, and even the Diana pearl necklace. In this palace version of events, she became the first queen consort in British history to be legally banned from the royal vault. As the master goldsmiths began the slow and painful effort to reverse the clip-on modification, a process that could take years and may never fully restore the earrings to their 1850 form, Charles reportedly turned his focus back to the lockdown journals. If the jewelry represented physical damage to the past, the journals represented a psychological threat to the future. With the new laws in place, the story moved away from gemstones and into the darker territory of memory, secrecy, and royal control. According to this account, deep beneath Buckingham Palace sits a newly fortified heritage vault, reshaped by the events of May 2025. It is there that the damaged suite and the sealed journals were placed under a far tougher level of protection after the sanctions and the Goldsmith's verdict. Charles reportedly introduced a sovereign dual-key protocol. One half of the vault access would remain with the king, and the other half would be held only by Prince William. That father and son barrier ensured that no single person, not a spouse, not a private secretary, and not a compromised guard, could ever again reach the royal archives alone. By including William in that chain of custody, Charles sent a brutal message. Queen Elizabeth II's private voice did not belong to the king's wife. It belonged to the royal line, and that opened the biggest question of all. What was in those journals that created so much fear? Why risk a $5 million heritage suite and a royal image just to keep those pages hidden? Palace insiders, speaking in whispers, suggested the journals may have contained far more than private sadness or passing doubt. Some claimed the late Queen used the 2020 to 2021 lockdown years to conduct a moral audit of her own family. There were whispers of private reflections on succession, notes on Harry and Meghan written from the viewpoint of a heartbroken grandmother, and even deeply personal thoughts about Camilla's place inside the institution. Some rumours even pointed to a shadow regency reflection, a private thought on whether the crown should have skipped a generation to stay strong in a more sceptical age. Whether any of that is true may remain unknown for decades, but the rumours alone explain why the journals became the most sensitive part of the entire scandal. Under the reported decree, the journals were resealed on May 20th, 2025, and are not to be opened, scanned, or transcribed until 2122. The people who may one day read them are not even born yet. They will come to the story with no personal tie to the Sapphire scandal, no loyalty to the people involved, and no reason to favour one side over another. That may be exactly how Charles wanted it. As for Camilla, the silence from Ray Millhouse is said to be total. Her disappearance from public life was so fast it felt like a surgical removal. One day she was presented as the polished face of a settled monarchy, dressed in sapphire symbolism. The next, her name had vanished from the court circular, her roles had been reassigned, and her image had collapsed under the weight of the scandal. Her military titles were reportedly reassigned to Princess Anne and the Princess of Wales. Her charities moved on. In this royal narrative, she became a ghost consort, a woman who still held rank in name, but no longer had the real power to represent the crown again. That image became one of the coldest parts of the whole story. The biggest surprise for many watchers was Charles himself. A lot of people expected a sentimental king, led by his heart. Instead, this version of events presents him as a sovereign of principle, willing to place the institution above the individual, even when that meant turning against his own wife. The damaged suite was secured. The journals were resealed. The brooch was returned. The pearl necklace was recatalogued. And the altered earrings remained as a private reminder of the price of misplaced trust. As the sun sets over Buckingham Palace, the gates remain closed, and the guards stand watch under tighter rules than ever. The secrets of Windsor are once again locked behind steel doors and dual key codes. We still do not know what Queen Elizabeth II wrote in those long lockdown nights, but one thing is clear in this version of the story. King Charles III would not allow her voice to be buried, reshaped, or silenced by anyone, not even the woman he once called his queen. The Sapphire betrayal may be over, but the legacy of the journals is only getting bigger. Drop your thoughts in the comments, subscribe, and stay with us, because this royal story is far from finished.